Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. We're really excited to talk about chatbots today. We'll get started in about a minute. Okay, let's get started. We'll be talking today about how chatbots will be your secret recruiting weapon in 2023. Before we get started, we're going to be asking, if you have any questions, feel free to ask at any time. We'll be monitoring the Q&A today throughout the session. And don't feel like you need to take any notes today. This recording will be distributed afterwards. Our agenda will be talking about our speakers, about Sense, and then we'll touch on the state of recruiting in 2023, why efficiency is so important for talent acquisition teams right now, why use chatbots, how those chatbots can serve as a recruiting secret weapon, and we'll touch about our Sense AI chatbot, an introduction to it, and finish up with our question and answer. I'm Amanda, a product marketing manager here at Sense, and I'm really excited to introduce you to Stephen and Pankaj. Stephen?
Thanks, Amanda. Stephen Miller, lead solution consultant here at Sense, and really excited to walk everyone through the powerful use cases of the Sense chatbot.
And I'm Pankaj. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for making this time and spending this time with us today to learn more about chatbots. I'm one of the founders of Sense. For those of you who don't know me, started the company about 7 years ago. And have spent my entire career, over 20 years, in human capital corporations. And for those of you who don't know about Sense, I will just give you a little quick 2-minute summary here. Sense, like I said, has been in business for over 7 years now. We have 800 plus customers, going on 1,000 pretty soon. And today we engage with over 100 million candidates every single year. That's nearly 2/3 of the entire working population in the US. Sense influences about 3 million hires every single year. So these are folks that, either one of our programmatic journeys is talking to or touching to or sending a text message, but we're the ones who are actually activating these candidates. And about 40 to 50,000 recruiters actually use Sense on a daily basis. On the right, you see a lot of our product suite. Today, we're obviously going to be talking a lot more about the chatbots. These are all AI-based and certainly work on natural language, some predictive analytics and intelligence. But we do a variety of different things that you see here. And as we do that, we actually did some of the heavy lifting right up front. We are integrated with dozens of different applicant tracking systems. You see some of those here in the bottom left-hand corner. The big ones like Workday and SuccessFactors and Taleo and iCIMS and UKG and ADP and so on and so forth. But essentially, we wanted to make sure that as you start thinking about adding to your tech stack, integration was never something that's a factor, or the fact that all of the information that you collect from your talent would sit within your system of record, and that's never a factor. So that's a little bit about Sense. And as we go through this conversation, I would urge for you guys to be more interactive, ask us a ton of questions. That's exactly what we are here for. That's what makes this interesting. We'd rather answer questions on anything that you're facing in your day-to-day operations right now, instead of worrying about just this being a monologue.
Agreed. Thanks so much, Pankaj, for giving us that overview. First off here, I'd love for us to cover the state of recruiting in 2023. Pankaj, you've in particular written and spoken a lot about this lately, but there's a definite shift in candidate expectations and talent engagement that's been having a big impact on recruiting in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, this is very close to my heart. I mean, and I think a lot of you on this webinar would probably agree with it. candidate expectations are completely changing. Candidates now expect a consumer-like behavior from your company. So, they expect you to give them the same experience that an Amazon.com would give them. If I want you to text me, don't email me. If I want you to email me, don't text me. If I want you to reach out during work hours, please do that. If I want you to reach out after hours, please do that. You now have to do this for hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of candidates. And you also have to give everybody this personalized white glove experience. So first of all, a tech stack that allows you to do that is becoming super important. Secondly, speed is becoming super important. There is a lot of data out there. You can certainly Google it to find out that when people look for a job, they look for it aggressively. People are applying to 12 jobs at once. Oftentimes they're applying to jobs in the evening. Which means it's after hours, and a recruiter might not be able to get back to them. But if you don't get back to them within seconds or minutes, they probably would have moved their attention on to somebody else. So they're applying after hours, but they're applying to a dozen different jobs. And the ones that will catch their attention is the one that immediately responded, immediately pre-screened them, and potentially immediately gave them an opportunity to be in front of a recruiter. So I think those are the two big changes: candidate expectations, the fact that they expect a consumer-like behavior, and speed is just absolutely critical.
And at the same time as these changing expectations, Pankaj, there's a real massive shift and push for TA teams to run more efficiently, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's the rub. I think all of you know that we're asking TA teams to do more with less. We're also sort of going through in some segments, a change where recruiters are being downsized, TA teams are being downsized. So it's certainly an anomaly. We're asking them to do more with less. We have less recruiters. It's just become super important right now. And of course, there is more talent available now than there was ever before, more candidates available now, which means the bar is super high. I remember having these conversations 2 years ago when we were in the middle of the pandemic, when nobody wanted to go to work, and we were talking about, hey, how do you cast a wider net? You just need to find, instead of going to 20 people, you now need to go to 2,000 people to find this elusive candidate. And now it's the other way around. Instead of casting a wider net, you now need to find the needle in the haystack. There are probably a bunch of people applying. First of all, how do you keep that consumer expectation going? But secondly, how quickly and efficiently can you get to the person that is really the good fit for your job, and then essentially bring them on? So I mean, this is super important. Stephen, what do you think?
I think you've kind of mentioned this, but the expectations of candidates have changed over the last year to 2 years. At the same time, we're also seeing TA teams try to do more with less. They're shorter staffed. They are dealing with a much higher volume of applications. They're trying to quickly respond to create that, consumer grade experience for the candidate. And at the end of the day, it's a lot. And, that's why we're here to talk about the important role that a chatbot can help play in overcoming some of these current challenges, allow you to reach your goals, and to really utilize AI and automation, which we've started to see really emerge as this sort of secret recruiter TA weapon as we're working with customers.
Absolutely, Stephen. And we found that 1 in 3 talent acquisition leaders feel as if their organizations aren't communicating with candidates successfully. This is a really compelling piece of data that from our joint study with the Talent Board. And we'll send you all a link to download the full report, and we'll share some additional data points here as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is super interesting, isn't it? I mean, one of the things we talk about a lot in the parlance of the chatbot is candidates don't often know exactly what is the right position for them. So when they apply to you, they might be applying in good faith, but maybe, your organization or recruiters aren't communicating to them because they essentially go, yeah, this person's not a good fit for this anyway. What am I going to do? Just telling them you're not a good fit. But the idea that a tech stack, a job matching engine, and Stephen will show you a lot of this later on, can actually tell this candidate and communicate with this candidate and say, hey, thank you for your application. You're not the best fit for the job you applied for, but guess what? We have 3 other jobs that you're a great fit for. Maybe some of them even pay more than what this person applied for. But immediately letting that person know and reaching back out to them and opening up your entire portfolio of open jobs to a candidate could certainly differentiate you, could certainly be the one place where the chatbot becomes somewhat of a panacea.
Yeah, I think a real challenge, but obviously a big opportunity for us to solve with technology as well.
Awesome.
Awesome. Let's dig into chatbots then and explain exactly how talent acquisition teams are using them as critical parts of their recruiting strategies. So first off, we're seeing the need for 24/7 recruiters in all industries, but especially in high demand areas like healthcare and retail and hospitality, right, Pankaj?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the biggest use cases, folks. We've been seeing this for the last 2 to 3 years. Number one use case is with healthcare, right? Healthcare workers, they're not typically working your 9 to 5. They work different shifts. They get breaks at different times. And when they do get that break, that's the one time that they can engage with you. And if somebody gets that break at, as you can see in this example on the screen, at 11 p.m., they're not going to be able to talk to a recruiter at 11 p.m., but they can talk to a chatbot. They can answer a few questions. They can maybe even get to a point where the chatbot tells them, you're the kind of person we're looking for. Let's schedule you to talk to a recruiter. And now you have the liberty to pick a time that you know you would be able to make. You don't have to work on the recruiter schedule. They're working on yours. So you can pick and say, hey, on Thursday next week at 3 p.m., I know I can take a 20-minute break. That's when I'll talk to somebody. The second is obviously whenever you're trying to do this in high volume, right? You're trying to recruit 50 people in a warehouse, 100 people who are drivers, or 50 people who are delivery folks. You'll be able to use this a lot more. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's important, obviously, to think about the efficiencies and the great experience that we can provide a candidate, that 24/7 always on recruiter there to answer questions, help the job seeker, get them matched to the right job. But it's also going to save a ton of time for your talent acquisition team. We're going to be taking off very manual tasks that, back and forth. Recently read a study that it takes at least 7 back and forths typically to coordinate an interview or a meeting with the candidate. So if we think about all that time that goes into scheduling meetings, to qualifying the candidates, the chatbot can really step in, can make the team super efficient while creating a delightful candidate experience. I know, Amanda, you mentioned the survey earlier. When I read through the survey, some of the stats that really stood out to me that were 51% of the respondents cited a significant, it's not just a slight, but a significant improvement in candidate satisfaction as a result of using chatbots. When asked about what were the top benefits of the chatbot, about 52% said improved responsiveness of their candidate communications, that just instant response, that quick consumer grade experience that we've all gotten used to. About 49% say their chatbots have enhanced the overall quality of the company candidate experience. And 35% have said that chatbots have freed up a significant amount of time, allowing their team to be more efficient.
And to your point, Stephen, this is one of the ways that powerful ways that chatbots can save your team time. Pankaj, pre-screening really does eat up a lot of time for recruiters, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, pre-screening is probably the biggest culprit in everything that you're seeing here. When you think about pre-screening, your recruiters are likely asking the same questions to every single candidate they're talking to. 90% of their questions are probably focused around availability, compensation, legality of working in the US, maybe some special requirements that you have. It's the same exact qualifying questions that they have to ask everybody. My guess is when a recruiter schedules a conversation with a candidate, they probably keep 15 to 30 minutes for it, more 30 than 15. A chatbot can have those conversations all day long, finish it within seconds, and give your candidate the disposition that the candidate is looking for. Yes, I'm a good fit, or no, I'm not a good fit. And if I'm a good fit, I'll be connected directly to a recruiter. But now your recruiter is only talking to 10, 15% of the people instead of 100% of the people. And at the very least, all of these people have been pre-screened, they meet a certain bar, and you can start having, more qualifying conversations from there on.
Yeah, I think it's definitely time for us to actually get to see this in action. So when we talk about the ability to pre-screen candidates, there are a number of different ways that a chatbot can help with the pre-screening of candidates. First and foremost, we're going to meet the candidate where they're at. So we can do that pre-screening directly on the conversational chatbot within the website, which you'll see here in a second. We can also pre-screen the candidate through web as well as text. Obviously, today, most of us are highly using text versus email communication. So we want to reach and meet the candidate where they're at. So whether that's web-based or text-based, which you'll get to see all of those options today, we're going to instantly respond to the candidate. We're going to begin asking very important questions. You know, Pankaj mentioned those very repetitive questions. It's not fun for a recruiter to ask 50 people the same 10 questions. Let's use the technology to ask those questions, do that qualification and that vetting for them, and ultimately serve them up a plate of qualified, ready to go candidates. So as we begin interacting with the pre-screening chatbot, I always like to call out, these are obviously going to be role specific. You'll see some different experiences here for healthcare, high volume, transportation, manufacturing, but the chatbot is personalized to the position or the type of job the individual has applied to. When it comes to the types of questions, we're going to serve up obviously those mandatory knockout questions. So as candidates are interacting with this chatbot, they don't have the right experience. They're not going to meet the job duties. They don't have the right skills. We can either end the conversation with the candidate at that point in time and then update their profile in the ATS. Or better yet, maybe they don't have a specific skill or they're working towards obtaining a certain educational attainment. We can ask cascading and corresponding questions. So if somebody says no, well, we might want to say, are you working towards that degree, towards that skill? So really great conversations the chatbots can have with candidates. Obviously, our candidate here is going to say, yep, they've got that correct experience for this healthcare role. We're going to continue to move on through the question set. Again, with that cascading technology, if somebody says yes or no to a certain question, maybe we need some follow-up questions. So if a healthcare worker says, you know what, maybe I have a hit on my license or I have a pending review, we can ask more information or questions about that specific response. As we're having these conversations, again, keeping in mind, these are completely personalized and the experience is driven towards the type of job. So here in more of an hourly type role, maybe we want to gather their availability and we're going to use that availability to match them up with a recruiter or match them up hiring manager for their first interview. All is done easily through the conversational chatbot, which you're seeing here within the browser. You'll also be seeing this in just a second on a mobile device, back and forth, just like you were texting a friend or a family member. Single select, multi-select, yes, no questions. We also have if this, then that formulas within the chatbot. So if we've asked them 10 questions, of which 3 are critical, we can use those 3 critical questions to route them towards the next step. As I've mentioned, all this data is writing back into your system of record or into your applicant tracking system. So as we're having the conversation with the candidate, information being written back into their profile, fields being updated, potentially dispositioning a candidate in a certain way based on the way they've responded to those screening questions. Now, we can continue to take this to the next step and we can actually begin with the next steps with the candidate. But before we do that, we're actually going to experience this as a job seeker, maybe on their mobile device. So maybe we've got an RN, we've got a driver, we've got somebody that is likely not checking their email on a regular basis. And we want the chatbot to have that same natural language conversation on text versus a browser. It's very easy for a candidate or job seeker to engage and interact with the conversational chatbot from a text or from web based on the number
Even
of
we
questions.
lost your voice for a second.
Oh no, hopefully.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Sorry about that, team. Just to recap, obviously, we're just having this
Sorry,
conversation.
Stephen, we can't hear you.
Oh, no. Amanda, can you hear me okay?
I can hear Stephen all right.
Hopefully, Mary will do a quick sound check. I don't know if I'm having audio issues or if maybe we're having some other audio issues. Well, hopefully everyone on the webinar can still hear me. We'll just go quickly through the flow here before we progress into another example of the chatbot. But again, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. But just a quick recap here, just going through that same type of conversation with the chatbot on a mobile device through texting. Again, this feels like you're having a back and forth conversation with a real recruiter. This could happen at 2 o'clock in the morning. It can happen during your breaks, after hours, when you have time. The other great thing about these chatbots is if somebody gets distracted, so they answer 3, 4, 5 of the questions and they drop off from the process, we'll reach back out to the candidate and re-engage them in the conversation so that we can get them back into the process and keep them moving along. With that, we're going to transition just a little bit. Amanda, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about automated interview scheduling.
Yeah, so Pankaj, you talked a lot about that back and forth. And if there's that one area that's especially critical, it would be in scheduling interviews, correct?
Guys, I can't hear anybody, but can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, if you can hear me, then I'm just going to talk about interview scheduling for a second. And then maybe I'll step out of the webinar for a second. But anyway, I was going to say, I mean, interview scheduling is probably one of the biggest pain points your recruiters talk to you about. Stephen gave you a really good stat before. It takes about 7 emails back and forth today to schedule a meeting. That's all the time that you can completely save because you can actually do automated scheduling using our chatbot. And not only can you do that, you actually put the onus back on the candidate because it's the candidate who's then essentially saying, here is a time that works for me. And if a candidate picks a time that works for them, they're very, very likely to show up. Instead of you telling them, here are the 2 times I have available, they might pick one with some hesitation, but eventually they'll find out that it isn't the time that worked for them. So we are super excited about this because we've now seen organizations that are scheduling 25,000 interviews every quarter. Imagine the amount of time that they're saving. These are all automated, and you can do some really cool things that I'm sure Stephen will show you on how these can be round robin and how there are like some of the other things you can do to make sure that it is equitable for your recruiting teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's actually go ahead and take a look at the scheduling in action. The amazing part of the scheduling experience, as we just saw with that pre-screening, whether it's on a browser or on our mobile device, after we've pre-screened the candidate, of course, we're going to update their record within the applicant tracking system or the system of record. We can send a copy of the transcript or an email notification to a recruiter or a group of recruiters, giving them quick and easy access to the transcript so that they can review the information. But better yet, we're going to take it one step further, and we're actually going to allow the candidate to pick a time that works for them. Again, thinking about that type of worker, maybe it's nights, weekends, after hours, they're applying to jobs, the chatbot's doing all the heavy lifting and the screening. Overnight, over weekend, they're going to be able to pick times that match up with the best available time for the recruiter. Now, what you're seeing here is the ability to self-schedule directly within the chatbot. As Pankaj mentioned, they can directly schedule with the recruiter that's associated to that specific opportunity or the specific job they've applied to. If you're in a high volume space, which many of our customers are, it may not be a specific recruiter that initial conversation will happen with. There might be 5, 10, 15 different team members that are all working on interviewing or doing that first level interview. So we can be connected directly to a recruiter's calendar, or we can be looking at multiple team members' calendars at the same time. We can evenly be distributing those meetings amongst the team members through our round robin feature. Or if we want to make sure that the best possible time works for our candidate, we also have the ability to go off of first available time for the team members. With that scheduling functionality, it of course is connected to both your Outlook or your Gmail calendar so that we're reading your actual available work times, only presenting times that you're open. Like any great automated scheduling feature, we're going to reduce the back and forth by instantly allowing the candidate to self-schedule directly within the chatbot. We'll also provide you with a branded scheduling portal. So if you want to drive candidates to the scheduling portal via a link from a text, they can also schedule it directly in a nice branded scheduling portal that, again, is connected to your calendar. This is only going to present times that you're open in your normal work hours, and you can apply some really great rules. Won't go through every common rule, but some of the most common ones are maybe you want 24 hours notice before meetings are booked, so no same-day meetings. Maybe you can only handle 8 in a day. You want 5-minute buffers so you can read your notes and be prepared for your next meeting. All are available within the Sense scheduling functionality that you've seen within the chatbot, as well as within that nice branded scheduling portal.
Awesome. Before we move forward, I got one question here. That's an interesting question. The question said, I may have missed this, but how would this be used if you're sourcing for candidates and don't rely on them applying? Great question. I mean, first of all, the chatbot is used very much as a sourcing tool. We're actually going to show you some of this, but for example, you could dig deep into your own candidate database and say, here is the kind of job that I have open. Here are 50 people in my database, 100, 1,000 that are either matched for this job using our job matching algorithm, or maybe your recruiter has done that. And once you do that, you can specifically reach out to them in an outbound fashion. Everything we've shown you so far has been inbound. Or a candidate is coming to your website, a candidate is applying to you. You can absolutely reach out to them outbound and say, we've identified you as a great fit for this particular role, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to click here and answer a few questions so we can move you forward in the recruiting process? You can certainly do that. The other thing that where people use this as a sourcing tool is, like I said before, folks are applying after hours, folks are applying who are not even in your candidate database today. So as those folks apply, we're not only gathering all of those people, we can create them as candidates within your applicant tracking system. So we're actually creating the record for these new people that you've never heard of. They could have potentially come to your website and left because there was not a good way to do candidate capture. But now you're capturing these candidates instantly by saying, tell me your name first, tell me your email. Like, even if you were to drop off, I want the first 5 seconds of that interaction with you. And once I've done the candidate capture, I can now reach back out to you to ask for the rest of your information. Or if I have that information already, actually match you with a job and start talking about some pre-screening questions, if you will. Great question. Second thing, Stephen, I'm going to throw this back at you. We got another question that says, can your chatbot use a certain time frame to schedule interviews, or is it just always any open availability?
I love that question. And the great thing here is maybe you're not the most friendly recruiter Monday morning, 8 a.m. Your calendar's wide open 8 to 5 on Monday. But maybe from 8 to 10, you need your coffee, you want to check up on your email. You can actually specify blocks on top of your calendar. So on Mondays, maybe it's just 12 to 5 when you're available. Tuesdays, 9 to 3. So absolutely, Pankaj, you can really customize the experience. And if there are time blocks you want to avoid, you can easily avoid those time blocks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I will tell you that a lot of organizations we work with, recruiters actually set up times where they say, I only want interviews from 9 to 12 every day, and the rest of the time I'm doing other stuff. Stephen, here's another one for you. Is there a way to weed out duplicate candidates that are already in our ATS?
Yeah, great question. And with the ATS integrations we do candidate deduplications. Typically, it's going to be done on contact information. So we can absolutely deduplicate. We can update profiles. Your previous history will obviously be retained with the candidate. So if you do get a job seeker, maybe they applied last year, they come to your website, scan a QR code, or use text to apply and are associated with a new application, that will be deduplicated and updated within your applicant tracking system.
Awesome.
Awesome. So something that you touched upon earlier, Pankaj, is that candidates want and sometimes expect those instant answers to their questions.
Yeah, I mean, we're calling this part of the chatbot FAQs. This is super interesting because, like everything else we've talked about before, this is a time sink as well. But the big problem is, this is a time sink that leads to no result or revenue. I mean, at least when you have a time sink with somebody wanting to pre-screen you or set up an interview, that's actually moving the process forward. These can sometimes be questions where people are going, what's your vacation policy? What's your PTO policy? Where do I check my paycheck? What's your bereavement leave policy? I mean, just things that are absolutely taking away from your recruiter's bandwidth, but aren't really helping you move some of the things forward in the recruitment process. Again, I'll punt back to Stephen to show you more of this, but this is just such an easy win for everybody because you know exactly what people are asking, and you can just make sure that these things are taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the really amazing things the conversational chatbot can do, is it can answer those questions. If you do get somebody that's doing some brand research, Maybe they know you, maybe they ran across one of your advertisements and they're not quite ready to apply, but they want to ask, what's the culture like? What types of benefits do you offer? What's your PTO? When am I going to get paid? What's the interview process? All those commonly asked questions that, as Pankaj mentioned, are non-revenue driving. They're kind of time waste or time sucks for our recruitment team. We can actually empower the candidate to ask those questions, and it's going to feel very natural. So within these chatbots, there's natural language processing, there's natural language conversations. So as the candidate's interacting, as they're asking questions, we're intelligently serving up responses. Now, as a candidate comes to the chatbot on the website, on an events page, on a career page, they're going to be able to have all those questions answered in a number of different ways. First and foremost, if they're a big question asker and they want to get right into the most commonly asked questions, right at the top, they can start to ask those FAQs. More commonly or more likely, though, the job seeker is just going to start having that conversation as they would if they were texting, as they were having a conversation. So maybe I'm interested today in learning more about health benefits. Or what types of benefits are being offered by the company or would be applicable. As you'll see here, based on just kind of quick text I threw in, the chatbot understood that I was asking about benefits, and it's going to bring back a response from a library of responses. Now, great news here, you don't have to come up or restart the wheel here when it comes to FAQ. We've got a library of the most commonly asked questions. The other thing we're going to do is when a candidate does select those FAQs, we'll serve up the 3 most commonly asked questions of your chatbot on that web page, so that, again, we're quickly getting to the candidate, we're quickly serving up the responses and the information that's important to them. The other thing that I would point out, we've had a lot of clients say, we have multiple pages on the career site where the FAQ might be different for an hourly worker versus an intern or early in their career type worker. The cool thing about the chatbots, you can have different chatbots that live on different pages, that have different goals, that are answering different questions. So if you do have a student and internship page and students want to come on and ask about your internships, they want to ask, what's the likelihood I'll get hired after my internship? That can be a highly personalized experience for that specific page on your career website or on the website itself. So super easy for candidates to ask questions in their natural language. So those are just quick keyword searches. Yes, no, yeah, sure, okay. But also the ability to get to those FAQs right at the top of the chatbot screen, as well as through the ability just to type their question. And you'll see here, even as one of the menu options, you can even include those FAQs so that we can quickly and efficiently serve it up. We don't want candidates to get bogged down and feel like this is one of those boring consumer chatbots. This is meant to be highly engaging.
And so sometimes candidates are coming to your website and they might be looking for a specific role and get overwhelmed by all of the results. Or maybe they aren't sure necessarily which role is a fit for them. Chatbot can play an interesting role there too, won't they, Pankaj?
Yeah. I mean, I talked about this before a little bit. A candidate isn't really always going to know what's the best job to apply to is. Oftentimes, those jobs may not even be discoverable. Maybe there is a great job sitting out there. They just didn't know how to filter down to that job. They just thought, I'm a project manager, let me apply to this. I'm a product manager, I'm a healthcare worker, I'm a manufacturing specialist. I just apply to a job. But the cool part, and this is really the game changer, where you can ask somebody just a couple of quick questions. And based on those questions, you can literally go, hey, based on your responses, here are a few jobs that you're a good fit for. Just let us know the job number that you're interested in, and we'll apply you, or we would actually set you up to talk to a recruiter, or we'll send you a text message to confirm that you've applied. I mean, imagine going on the website of your company, engaging with a chatbot, answering a couple of questions, and before 2 minutes are over, you're actually talking to a recruiter about a specific job. Or in the cases of high volume workers, you might actually answer a few more questions, but end up with somebody saying you're hired, subject to a criminal or a background check, and you showing us a couple of forms of ID. That's what the organizations of the future are moving to, where they're actually challenging us to do hello to hire in less than 5 minutes, in less than 2 minutes. Somebody brand new comes to your website and can be hired within a couple of minutes. So this is just really, really powerful stuff that uses machine learning. We'd love to show you more about how this works.
Yeah, let's actually see this in action. So as we start to think about that personal, kind of experience with the chatbot to be matched to jobs, if any of us or anybody on the line has used Spotify, Instacart, if you're a podcast listener, we've all gotten as consumers really used to that recommendation experience, right? Once we grab some basic information, once we learn a little bit more about you, all of a sudden you start getting curated content. So just like Spotify, just like any of those consumer apps or tools that we're used to that starts to understand our preferences, we're going to use the chatbot to do the same thing. So whether you're a high volume company with thousands of jobs posted, or you're a smaller organization with maybe niche roles or less jobs, but still want to increase the number of candidates that are captured, you want to maximize the throughput of the candidates on the site by quickly and easily matching them to those jobs. And we're going to do that directly through the chatbot. Now, the conversation the chatbot's about to have with our candidate in today's example, he's going to be Andrew Paxton. As we're collecting this information, we're beginning to build out a profile for that candidate. Data is being inserted back into the ATS to create the record of the individual that's being engaged with. As they're having this conversation, maybe they miskey something, phone number, email address, currency, date, address fields. We're not going to rely on the candidate to spot check their own work, and we're going to validate along the way. So if they miskey a phone number, miskey an email address, or any of those other critical fields that I just mentioned, the chatbot's smart enough to help the candidate along the way correct the error or make sure that we get the correct information so that we can not only properly build out their profile, but we can start to intelligently match jobs. Now, as that natural language kicks in, maybe they say a full state, they give you a zip code, they say an area, they say, I want remote work versus I want to be in the office. We're using all this data that we're collecting on the individual to, again, tailor the jobs that we're recommending to them within the chatbot. Today, I'm feeling pretty smart and I'm a Java developer, or I've recently been a Java developer. Don't have a copy of my resume with me today, but you do have the ability to collect resumes. So if you want candidates to upload a resume, they can do so directly within the conversational chatbot. And after about a 30-second conversation with the chatbot, we're intelligently matching the candidate to an active job that you have posted or a set number of jobs. So as you can see here, Andrew, who's interested in Java developer roles in Boston, just was personalized and matched to 2 different opportunities that we actively have posted. Andrew can go in and learn more about these different positions. So Andrew doesn't have to go to the full job description. He doesn't have to leave the page to read about this job. Right within the chatbot, he or she's going to be able to explore the opportunities they were matched to. They'll have the ability to apply to those positions that we've matched them to. As Pankaj alluded to or mentioned before, if you're light industrial, maybe there are some qualifying questions that you want to ask in the chatbot before we even match. Hey, can you lift 50 pounds? Reliable transportation, willing to do a background check. So there are a lot of different ways that we can personalize the experience, not only to our external candidates, but also a lot of our clients are starting to think about retaining talent, internal mobility. How can I provide the same experience to my employees and begin matching them to internal opportunities or to career pathing opportunities within the organization? So a really great way to cater to the candidate, that consumer-like experience that we're all getting used to. And I love the questions earlier about sourcing candidates. How do we get to other candidates that maybe aren't yet inside our ATS or are maybe outside of the system? So I'd love to talk a little bit about some other options with the chatbots.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Stephen, for that demo. We're seeing quite a few customers use Chatbot in some fun and interesting ways, particularly with text to apply and QR codes. Pankaj, could you speak a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is just a proof of how sort of ubiquitous the chatbots are now becoming. Here in the Silicon Valley where I live, you can't drive by a highway without seeing a billboard that says, text 1234 to jobs or text this number to a job. Every restaurant you probably go to now, you have a QR code that says, scan this QR code to apply for a job. We have some customers that have done some really fun things with it. They actually put QR codes on buses, on lawn signs, on actually company hats that they give out to people, so you can, and by the way, this is a live QR code. So while I'm talking about this, please scan this QR code, and and I'm sure Stephen will show you how this works in action. But if you scan this right now, you can answer a couple of questions right now. So the point is, it's just making the part that you can be so accessible to an organization, where you literally scan a code while you're sitting in traffic or just driving or just at a restaurant, answer a couple of questions and be connected to talk to somebody. It's really democratized the process, how people look for a job. So yeah, this is the kind of thing that really, really excites me. But please, all of you, I'll urge all of you to scan this and just see the experience for yourself.
Yeah, let's actually go ahead and take a look at the experience. And again, we'll give you a few seconds here. Would encourage you to scan that QR code. We've thrown together just a real quick, fun little experience. If you were trying to grab your phone before we transition, feel free to scan the QR code. We'll keep this up for about 3 seconds. As I keep this up, I will mention, Pankaj has already said it, but the ability to have text to apply and QR codes is really critical, especially with our sourcing efforts. We work with customers that are using QR codes in a number of different ways. We're seeing clients use these QR codes and text to apply phrases as they're out at universities doing recruiting, as they're at career fairs, tech schools, new location openings, hiring days, getting started career fairs, all these different use cases, all the way through print media, postcards, yard signs, outbound advertising. We're even starting to see these QR codes and the text to apply phrases pop up in physical locations. So if you're a retailer, or as Pankaj mentioned, you got trucks on the road, you can have those QR codes, text to apply phrases on billboards, trucks, out in the community. That way, as candidates are out and about, they can quickly scan that QR code, they can text that phrase word. Maybe one of the only good things of COVID was we all learned how to use QR codes. There's probably not anybody on the phone that over the last 2 or 3 years hasn't had an experience with a QR code. It's easy, it's simple. So scanning that QR code or texting the phrase word is going to bring back a conversational chatbot. The one you got to see on your screen today, obviously, was just a quick 2-minute question and answer about your experience using automated chatbots. Please play with it, have some fun as you're answering questions and you're experiencing the chatbot. But I did want to show a real life use case of those QR codes, text to apply, especially in the sourcing questions and sourcing efforts. Again, going back to maybe your university recruiting team's getting back out in 2023. Maybe you're looking to have a physical presence in places. Rather than go old school and do pen and paper and take that pad of paper at the end of the day and try to manually type it into the ATS, use technology to do it for you. We recently had a client that was actually a DE&I recruiting event, and the client continuously got feedback and got compliments from their candidates saying, nobody else here is doing this. It's all drop a business card, give a resume, fill out a list, and we'll follow up with you. With you guys, it was just scan the QR code, answer a few questions about when I graduate, what I'm interested in, what types of jobs I'm looking for. So that's really the power of the Sense chatbot. The other thing I like to call out is this is a no-code chatbot builder. You do not need to be a Java developer to build out a chatbot. It could literally be the morning of your event. You're going out to the Ohio State University to do collegiate recruitment this afternoon. You can spin a chatbot up in about 45 seconds within the Sense platform. So you can add questions, change it up, add graphics, logos, imagery, and have that thing in production within 3 seconds. So when you hit build on a Sense chatbot, it's not going into a queue. It's built live for you in the platform. Your QR code, your text to apply are immediately available. Just a few more things here on the screen. Last couple things I'd point out about these chatbots is, of course, natural language processing, as we already mentioned. So if they miss key information, we're going to validate. If there's a yes, no question and they say thumbs up, yeah, sure, okay. All those positive responses are understood, much like we do when we have natural language conversations. As we're collecting the information based on the event or the career fair, maybe you are looking for people that are graduating, or you're looking for individuals with a certain specialty, a skill set, a license. These chatbots can easily be programmed to ask any question you want. We can collect that information, write it back into your applicant tracking system. Here, When are you going to graduate? Well, I'm going to graduate in spring of, it was a lot longer ago than spring of 2023, but we're going to say spring of 2023 today, studying general studies. So just using the chatbot at the event to actually collect this information. And ultimately, if maybe you're busy at the booth, things are really busy, you got a lot of people coming up. If people are scanning those QR codes or doing that text to apply, they can also book follow-up time with the recruitment or the sourcing team using the same scheduling functionality we saw earlier. So maybe you're going to be at the event tomorrow afternoon and on Friday, and you're only going to be there from noon to 5 on Thursday and 2 to 4 on Friday. They can actually schedule time with your sourcers or recruiters that are actually at that event at a future point in time or as a follow-up to the event. So some really creative, fun, unique ways to use those different QR codes and text to apply based chatbots.
Awesome. Stephen, you got to go Buckeyes while you were doing that.
Hey, go Buckeyes, fellow Ohioans.
Here's a question we also got for job seekers. What could they do to prepare for this system to get more chances for next steps? I mean, one of the things I would tell you is the whole idea behind this technology is to make sure that it can sort of take the mystery out of what it takes to get a response from an organization, right? This is actually working for you. 62% of the people today report that once they apply for a job, they never hear back. 80% of the people will tell you that they hear back after 24 hours. If they do hear back. So first of all, what this is doing is getting you to a disposition really quickly. Within 30 seconds, within a minute, you could at least find out this organization is interested in me and I'm scheduled to talk to a real person. If that's not going to happen, they can at least tell you, hey, you're not a good fit for this job. Here are some other jobs you might be a good fit for. Go evaluate those. If that doesn't happen, they'll at least tell you, hey, we can't match you for a job, but here are where our latest open opportunities are. Maybe you didn't even know that. Maybe you just came across one job on LinkedIn or something. Go look out that link. If you can't do that, they'll probably be like, these are the kind of people we're looking for. Maybe refer somebody over to us. I mean, the whole idea is to make this a meaningful interaction, with an organization that typically you feel like, I don't know somebody who works here. I don't know how to break into this Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 organization, and my application is just going to go into a black hole. So just know that, any organization that's actually deploying a chatbot is working in your favor. They're actually trying to democratize the recruiting process.
Thanks for that, Pankaj. Yeah, the last reason why how chatbots can serve as your recruiting secret weapon is to reduce that job board spend. And I like to bring this up as well because well-designed and deployed chatbots can help you reduce your job board spend as well as really maximize the potentially tens of thousands of candidates that can be in your database. Correct, Pankaj?
Yeah. I mean, this is something we hear about a lot, folks. I mean, if there is anybody out there who's on the fence of using a chatbot or how you're going to find investment for it, this is how you're going to find the investment for it. You're probably going to save more money than what you invest in a chatbot in your job board costs. You've probably been paying the same amount of money or an increasing amount of money every year to your job boards for a number of years. You've probably built a robust database. But if you take a look at it, 90% of the people in your database, you probably haven't talked to in 6 months or more. These are all folks that were added into your database for a reason, right? So you thought they were a good fit for one of your open jobs. It's very easy for you to now rekindle them using a chatbot. Somebody asked a question earlier about using chatbots as a sourcing platform. This right here is the answer. You take the people based on the jobs that you have open and you purposely reach out to them and say, we've identified you as a good fit for this role we have open. You're in our database. Are you interested? Yes? Great. Click on this link and answer a few questions. No, I'm not interested. Come back to your ATS and mark that person as passive or not interested. Clean up your data to say, I might be thinking that I'm sitting on 1 million people, but 800,000 of those are either not interested in my company or not available for the next 6 to 12 months. That's not really my active candidate pool. the other 200,000 days, and I'm going to mine the heck out of it. Depending on the size of your organization, we've had companies who've told us they've saved millions of dollars in job board spend. For you, it might be tens of thousands of dollars. But my point is, you actually get to make your own database work for you first.
Yeah, and I think this is a really great point or great time to kind of elaborate a point we've tried to make throughout this conversation. Not all chatbots are created equally. Looks like we've got a poll that popped up.
Yeah. We'll give that a few seconds. But yeah, Stephen, you were saying, talk to us about what are different kinds of chatbots.
Yeah, it's really essential to understand the difference between chatbots. And as we mentioned earlier, some of us may have had frustrating experiences with chatbots in the past. So I think it's really important to understand that we want to create that consumer grade experience. We want to give candidates lots of different ways to get to the chatbot. So if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody's on your website. If they're out and about in the community and they see a QR code, a text to apply. If they are already in your database because they applied 3 years ago, their specialties changed, their backgrounds changed. There are multiple different ways that we're going to be able to interact with talent. We're going to meet them where they're at, but ultimately, all the different use cases we've covered today are meant to make your teams much more efficient and allow you to do more with less.
Yeah. And I think one of the points that Stephen is making very elegantly here is these are purpose-built chatbots. I mean, you talk to Siri on your iPhone, that's a chatbot. You talk to Google Home, you talk to Alexa, that's a chatbot. You probably get messages from Macy's or Nordstrom or any places you're shopping at, and restaurants that want you to confirm whether you're showing up for dinner. They're not purpose-built for recruiting. Everything that we've shown you here is actually learning from your questions every single day. The 100 million candidates that we interact with on an annual basis and the millions of conversations we're doing on a monthly basis are adding to the machine learning of everything that you saw here today. So now when somebody asks you, are you interested in this role? And instead of saying yes, or I am interested, or yay, if you literally did like a thumbs up emoji, it gets it. If somebody asked you, what's your name, chances were you first had to say Stephen for the chatbot to say, I got it. If you said, my name is Stephen, they'll figure out that the Stephen part is your first name, right? So my point is, I can get into a lot more detail about the technology behind this, but my point is, these are purpose-built for recruiting. So with that, we've obviously talked about a lot of different chatbots. I wanted to take a single screen to show you how chatbots actually can work across your entire talent lifecycle. This is probably what your flywheel looks like. People who are applying to you, people who've applied, they're fine, they're successful, they're interviewing, people who are passively figuring out what kind of jobs do you have, or people who are already onboarding in your company and they're maybe looking for internal mobility, or maybe they're looking for upskilling. What you're seeing here are various kinds of chatbots that we've shown you today that will fit within those cycles. If somebody's applying, the website chatbot comes into play. You might reach out to them and say, hey, I want you to apply for this role because you're a great fit, and that's where reactivation comes into play. If somebody's interviewing, they'll use a scheduling chatbot for sure. They might also use an FAQ chatbot to say, hey, I'm starting to get serious about these guys. Let me find out about their benefits. If you were just sitting in traffic and you literally wanted to scan a QR code to see what does this company have open, that's where you're passively looking. My point is, we don't realize it, but when we talk about a recruiting chatbot, it encapsulates amongst itself 10 different kinds of chatbots that you might be using that all work seamlessly. So one of the things I wanted to show you after this is, here are some of our real life customers. We've tried to pick 3 different companies that have completely different use cases. So you can see where they're using it the most. This is an organization. It's one of America's fastest growing private companies. They're obviously super worried about accelerating their time to hire. And you can see they've already saved 6,300 recruiter hours by engaging 35,000 candidates through the chatbot. The number of hires that they've made year on year have grown by 22%. But essentially, That 6,300 number is over 3 man-years that they've saved just in a single quarter, which will be 12 man-years by the time this year is done. That's 12 full-time people, worth of cost that the chatbot has already returned back to them without actually making a single hire. So there is that. The second one, this is a firm, and I think I loosely referred to them when I was talking earlier. They're the ones that are using screening and scheduling very, very effectively. They hire manufacturing and logistics workers. So these are the folks where they're able to do pre-screening very quickly. Can you lift 50 pounds a day? Can you stand on your feet for 8 hours a day? Are you vaccinated against COVID? Do you have a driver's license? Can you get to such and such location? Will you work for this exact amount of money? So their pre-screening is very cookie cutter. And once somebody gets to that, they essentially want to make sure that they just keep filling up the calendar of a round robin group of recruiters. So recruiters can check their IDs, ask a couple of questions, run a background check and say, you're good to go. You can start working. They're now scheduling 25,000 meetings in a quarter, have decreased their time to fill on some positions by 81%. Reminds me of another customer that currently was taking 7 days in the same space to fill their positions, and now they're taking 1.5. And then lastly, this is more around the sourcing chatbot part we talked about around, reactivation. So here, we've got some folks where they've actually reached out to hundreds of thousands of candidates within their database, and they've been able to bring a number of these people back into the organization. You probably hear this a lot where you say, hey, we're super interested in hiring people back who have worked here once or who are an alumni because they understand so many of our processes. And those are the kind of people that are immediately coming back. So those are some different case studies, on what this could mean from an ROI standpoint if you ever have to justify it to your CHRO or your talent acquisition teams or the CFO's office. With that, that's a lot of what we wanted to talk about today. Happy to take any more questions between Amanda, Stephen, and I. If you guys have any last-minute questions, please feel free to put that in the panel. We'll hang out here for a couple of minutes, but all of our email addresses are on the next slide. If you think of something later on, if you think of, oh, I really meant to ask this, or I didn't mean to ask this in a group, but I wanted to ask this one-on-one, please reach out to any of us. Those are all of our email addresses. We'll be happy to get back to you. If you just want to get more informed about, if you just wanted to get more informed about how a chatbot can help in your particular environment, we can certainly give you that information. We can also connect you with customers who are currently using chatbots, and that might be something that might be helpful to you. Question on the Q&A panel is, are we sending out a slide deck? Yeah, you'll get a recording of this webinar, Kelsey, so you'll get all of that. Another question we got is, do we have analysis on which model works? Again, I'll go back to the slide I showed before, which is there are a bunch of different use cases for the chatbot. It depends on what's the need of the hour for your organization. If you're looking to screen and schedule, that's where you're going to spend most of your time. If you're looking for pre-screening, that's different. If you're looking for FAQs, depends on where you're trying to save recruiter bandwidth, recruiter time, organizational cost, and that's the chatbot that you would want to start with. All right, if there are no other questions, I'll take the opportunity to thank all of you for spending time with us today and giving us this hour. We really appreciate it on behalf of Stephen and Amanda and myself. Happy to answer any questions that come up later, and have a great rest of the afternoon. Thank you, everybody.